So we're now inside our temp project. So it's an Angular project, and these were the files that were created with the ng space new space the project name, which is temp. The very first folder that we get is E2E. That stands for end-to-end test. Basically, you have your end-to-end files here. And the first one you would see SRC, which is the source code for your test. Again, this is the end-to-end test basically, and you would see the test code here. Okay. Next, you would have the node modules. It's basically all the node dependency that you need for your project, and this is what's generated as well when you npm install. Next is SRC. SRC stands for your source code, and what's inside of that is the app folder, which contains all your application logic and data. It's where your app component lives. Inside of that app folder, you do have the routing module. That's because we said yes a while ago when we said, would you like to install routing module as well? This helps you create paths, let's say /books, and it should load up books component. This is where you put that. Your app component.css is basically your CSS style sheet for the root app component. Your app component HTML defines the HTML template for, again, your root app component. The app component spec TS defines your unit tests for the root app component. Your app.component.ts, this is where the logic of the root component named app component. App.module.ts basically tells Angular how it would assemble the application, and as you add more components to your app, you must declare them here as well. Next, we go to the assets. Assets is basically where your static files live. Environments is where it contains the build configuration for particular target environments. Let's say development environment and production environment. You configure them here. favv.icon is basically the icon used for these applications in the bookmark bar. Index.html is your main HTML file. Main.ts is the entry point of your application. It compiles the application with the JIT compiler and bootstraps the application's root module, app module, to run in the browser. Polyfill.ts provides the polyfill scripts for browser support. Styles.css is your global CSS style sheets. Test.ts is your main entry point for your unit test. The editor.config is your configuration code editors for code editors. It's just how you want to have spaces, 2 spaces, 3 spaces, 4 spaces. .git ignore, you want this whatever files or folder you put in here, it's basically not going to be tracked, meaning it's not going to be included in your version control. It is very good to ignore your environment variables so that you don't accidentally push your secret keys. Angular.json basically includes the configuration options for your build, serve, test that the command line interface uses. So like this one, moving on. The browser list is basically adjust the CSS and JS output for different browsers. And next we have the karma.conf.js. It's basically a configuration for your Karma application. Karma application is basically a test runner. Your package.lock is basically the what's generated when you have the npm install from package.json. And package.json includes all the npm package dependency that are required for the library. So whenever you cloned a project, you basically don't have all the dependencies yet until you use the npm install, and it will install the dependencies here listed here. Readme.md is basically your documentation. When you put that in your repository, it helps a user understand what the project is all about. Your tsconfig.app.json is basically your configuration for your app. tsconfig.json is your configuration for TypeScript. Whenever you do the tsc command, tsconfig.spec.json is your TypeScript configuration for library test. tslint.json is your tslint configuration for this project.